Yeah. Anyway, on to the best part of this. So welcome to Creative Catch Up. And the first part of it is going to be the Pathmaker webinars. And we're going to hear from the legend that is Graham McKnight. And I'll pass straight over to him. So Graham McKnight, the technical stage manager. Is that all right? I might chip in, but I'll probably just let you ramble on, mate.
That's mate, right. Absolutely chip in. I have a tendency to ramble. So yeah.
I'm just thinking, just as a format, some people that weren't on last week. Someone turn it on. So if everyone, you know the etiquette, stick yourselves on mute. If people have got questions, put them into the chat, and then I can sort of keep an eye on that, and we can chip in if and when. Otherwise, yeah, you've got those questions as provocations, mate. So just how did you get into it? Any tips, tricks, and anecdotes?
All usual.
All right, over to you, Paul.
Yes, no worries. I'll just keep referring to notes and stuff. But yeah, looking forward to hearing everyone's questions later. Yeah, the first point was how I got into it. I think everyone gets into it differently, but I think it's just a real kind of mixed bag of how you get into it. And there's a ton of different ways to get into it, so it's not that this is the only way. And that,
I'm just going to chip in, mate. Sorry, because this is I'm learning how to do this as well at the moment, and it's something that I need to do. What would be great is, I mean, for people watching who have no idea what a technical stage manager is, what would be great is if you could tell me who you are, where you're from, and what is a technical stage manager. That would be really good. And then if you can start how you get into it.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm Graham McKnight. I'm currently a technical manager at the Liverpool Empire. I've been with ATG that run that theatre for about 5 years. I was over in Manchester before then, running the Opera House. What is a technical manager? Again, that's a bit of a huge ballpark question. It's basically a little bit of anything that happens backstage. So when we're in performance mode, you're looking at getting the touring productions into the venue, getting it built, running the teams there. Basically just managing it all to make sure everything's happening. You've got any kit that you need to put on that show, it's all running smoothly. The team's happy they know what's going on. The tour are happy, they know what to expect when they arrive. Basically just making sure it's all smooth sailing up until the point we open and audiences are sat watching the show, having a lovely time. But then that also flips when there's no shows on. You kind of prepping kit, looking after your kit, making sure everything's again in good shape, making sure the building's in good shape, arranging contractors to come in. So it's a little bit of all sorts, and it's a kind of jack of all trades job, which is kind of what I fit into because I've done lots and lots of bits and pieces in my career. I've not really kind of taken a single path straight through. And yeah, so that's me now. I never really knew what I wanted to do, even as a kid. Growing up, I had no idea. And as a result, kind of once I got through high school into college, I was doing like bits of all sorts. I was doing like sciences and English and drama and a mix of all sorts. So as a result, I ended up doing 3 years at Priestley rather than 2. And it was in that third year, I found that I had a little bit more free time. So I started to help out in the performing arts department with setting up the tech for shows and things. And it was that kind of moment that kind of led me to get into the industry. Because with a bit of support from the staff there, I was looking at uni courses and as a potential way of getting in, and that's the route I took. I went up to Cumbria Institute of the Arts to do a degree in technical theatre, which is now the University of Cumbria. But since then there's now lots and lots of unis. There was only a spattering of unis around the country that did technical degrees, especially outside of London. I think there was 3 or thereabouts. So there's a lot more options now with where you can go to do dedicated technical courses, and so that's really good. So I went up to Cumbria and did my degree, but I think it was what was invaluable for me, I think, was within a couple of months I was working in the local theatres as crew, getting up kind of rock and roll shows in there and comedy gigs, as well as I was working for the university theatre on a professional level, setting up lights for, in our first year, they used to have touring productions as the uni got busier, that kind of fizzled out. And it was that kind of combination of work and study, because I was trying to pay for it as well. So it was kind of a juggling act between work, social, study. But that kind of, it was a really good foundation for how busy and full on this industry can be when you're working in there. So I found that really invaluable. I'm just looking at my notes to see where I've got up to with my waffling.
No, don't. Sometimes it's. I mean, I'm really enjoying this. If you want me to ask the questions, or if you've got notes, then
No,
great, perfect.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, and that's it basically. Working in that theatre, we also did it was mainly rock and roll and comedy. We also did some touring theatre, and it's those kind of theatre shows. It wasn't a fully kitted out theatre. It was like a sports hall venue, so it was great for rock and roll and comedy. It's like a mini arena setup. But for theatre shows, then it required a lot of thinking of like how we were going to get around a lot of obstacles from the setup and the kit that we didn't have as a venue that they're used to touring to theatres. And so it was those kind of prolonged conversations, often sitting in the pub over a bit of lunch rather than sitting scratching our heads in the theatre. And it was those conversations of how we were going to get around things that kind of led me to get to know people who were working in the industry from London on tours for production companies, and that's kind of where it grew from. So I've skipped a little bit that, by the end of my uni, they'd given me a full-time job as chief LX and stage manager at this venue. So that's why I was having those conversations with the touring guys. And that was it really. After I was only working full time there for about 12 months after I finished uni, before I was off on a tour, and that was it. So I was off with High School Musical for I think that was about 9 months tour. So that and the rest just came after that really.
Where did you tour with High School Musical?
UK. So yeah, no, just the UK. So my first kind of handful of tours was just around the UK and Ireland, which was great. Like I said, you're early 20s and touring around, having a great time.
Just a quick question, because did you have people, like you seem to have followed your nose, and it sounds like the staff at Priestley sort of put you in the right direction, but did you know anyone that did what you do now? Like, did you know anyone that you could chat to? Did you know anyone that was from around your neck of the woods, blah, blah, blah?
No, not at all. I think I could definitely count on one hand the amount of times I've been into a theatre before I've worked in one. And definitely not doing anything I've done. What I used to go into Manchester in college, and used to watch a lot of gigs. So what I ended up doing was I'd stand by the sound desk and kind of peer over and have a chat. And surprisingly, actually, you'd expect to get told to get lost, but if you start asking questions that make sense, they're quite happy to show you. And I was like invited in. Stand in here if you want to have a look. And this is the setup we've got, and we'll be looking at instruments and how and what's what. So it was a lot of just asking questions, like. Yeah, get to know people, go out and chat to people.
Well, that's good. That leads me on to what I was going to say, because one of those questions is, what advice have you got? Those questions there in front of you? Oh, great.
Absolutely, yeah.
For my knowledge, because it's a good reminder. But if you want to, if it's useful to say, you go through the questions, and actually, if we can hear what those questions are, because that might be useful. I've not got them up in front of me, because I'm just thinking about what advice. Isn't it the question there about something like, what would you give your advice? Would you give yourself or someone starting out or something?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a bit down the line. The next one was what challenges have you faced?
Oh, great. Yeah, you do it in order, mate. Sorry, I'm hijacking you, making you dance about.
It's all right. I've got my notes. Yeah. I'm prepped. For once, yeah. Challenges. I think very early on, getting onto a tour with no kind of experience. All I'd done is this little sports hall venue, so it took a lot of trust from a production manager that I'd kind of known over 2 years, basically 2 to 3 years probably, and we're still good friends now. Of going in the pub, discussing stuff, talking, sorting out problems, and then him saying, would you ever consider tour? And then those conversations happening from there. But then from tour, I was like, well, I want to go into London, because at the time I thought the West End was absolutely, that's where you've made it and things. And but trying to get into that without a London School Association or any experience, it was always that little ring that you can't get into, because you can't, they always used to say, oh, well, you've got no West End experience. It's like, well, I'm not going to if no one gives me the job to get it. But it didn't take long for me to realize actually none of that mattered, and you actually get a lot more experience from tour than you do sitting in one venue in the West End. And it's just to do with what I was saying earlier about those challenges. You have one show in one theatre in London, and you have your challenges, absolutely, but then you solve them, and that's it. You're just in the run then. So it's copy paste every night. Whereas on tour, especially if you're doing a weekly tour, every week you're in a different venue. So every week you're hit with new challenges as you're building it, as you're running, as local staff go off and you have to kind of cover. You find you're doing a lot more multitasking and covering a lot more roles. Because again, if you've got a show up in the middle of Scotland, you can't just make a phone call and get somebody you know to come up and cover. So there's a lot of that kind of thinking on the fly and kind of dealing with stuff, curveballs that are getting thrown at you. So I found, you just kept chipping away at that, and actually your knowledge base grew at a much faster pace, and then you were more than qualified to do anything you wanted, really, and you kind of got into it that way. And that was it. I ended up going into Regent's Park, the outdoor theatre in London, and from there we transferred shows into the West End, and that was my kind of roundabout way of getting into London then, and then discovering that, oh, actually, personally, I find it quite dull sitting in one place after I've just done years touring, so I kind of went back to touring. But that was it, and I just started to follow the work, really. I didn't say I wanted to base myself in London or base myself up north. I would just be, as the jobs came in, I'd accept them and I'd go to wherever that was. It was a little bit living out of a rucksack, but it meant constant work. And I've been fortunate enough to actually have a CV where there are no gaps. It's all pretty much job after job after job. And I think that goes to the point of when I was younger. Once I was subletting flats in London, but I had no personal base, and it was a thing of going, well, unless I want to sweet talk some family back up north, I don't actually have anywhere to go. So you're actually really pushing to get these jobs. You're either pushing to get another job in London so you can still pay for your renting for your flat, or you're looking to kind of push to get that next tour. It's a real drive to kind of just be like work. Next question was career highlights. And I think I've got quite a lot. Like that first tour, it sounds hilarious, me saying I really enjoyed being on High School Musical, but there was something about that tour. I did that tour, and there was a lot of people kind of my age, early 20s, on that. It was a lot of people's first tour, and that's everything from performers to a couple of the band were fairly new. A lot of tech staff had kind of done a couple of things, but it was a really kind of young company. So we were all on that kind of discovery of what the industry is, what professional industry is, what touring is. It was great. It's just a really, really good bunch, and I like that. But I think I'd say from then, career highlights, it'd have to be Warhorse. I think that's my favourite show that I've done, where I got asked to go and do it. I didn't know much about it, so I went over to the Lowry to watch it. And I remember sitting in the stalls watching it and just thinking, within 10 minutes I was in and going, I want to be a part of this. Absolutely. I knew I was accepting before the show had even finished. And then I went on to that. Master Carpenter for that, and we did UK tour of that. Took that out to South Africa, and that was fantastic. All the puppets on that came from a South African puppet company.
Wow.
So we did. We kind of took it back to there. The National wanted to kind of do a bit of give back. So they didn't make any money from the South Africa tour. That the exchange rate is like rand to the pound. So there was no, from ticket sales, we were getting nothing. So it was basically a free tour there, but they invited the whole puppet company to come and see it for free. They did a load of underprivileged schools performances. So we had a theatre full of South African kids that had never been to a theatre before, all shouting and clapping and all the way through. And it's the most phenomenal thing of, you're so used to that theatre environment here of everyone and being quiet, and these guys were everything. That if they found it funny, there was no holding the laughter back. They were loving every second of it and shouting and letting you know. It was just a really good experience, and I think that's a career highlight, definitely.
Just on that, because you mentioned that you were master
Carpenter on that.
Yeah. So I mean, people might know horse if they've seen it, but what is a master carpenter on that? Then what?
So a master carpenter role is basically head of a carpentry department. So that is, and actually on Warhorse that doesn't include the horses. We had a dedicated puppet team because they're so intricate and so specialized. We had a dedicated puppets team looking after that, and they were fantastic. So they did their own carpentry. I mean, any bigger stuff, occasionally we helped them out, and vice versa. We got them to give us a quick hand. That was quite a nice balance. But the master carpenter would typically look after the set and the scenery of a show, and they tend to run the get-ins, the fit-ups, and the get-outs as well from a production point of view. So it was making sure if it goes to plan. So you're looking at the theatre plans and the drawings and the overlays of the sound there to make sure we start building in the right spot. Because obviously, if you're starting out to build a floor or build a set and you're even 10 centimeters off one way or the other, it doesn't work, and it doesn't marry up with where the lights are hung or where the sound system is.
Sounds a lot more complicated than walking and talking and trying not to bump into the furniture like we do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I kind of at that level, it kind of is. But you can get deputy master carpenters, and again you get kind of technical ASMs as well, which is kind of they'll help out with technical ASMs. Tend to help out with whatever department, and that's where I started. I started on High School Musical as a technical ASM. So
just for anyone who doesn't know, a technical ASM is technical
assistant stage manager. Yeah, so you're in the stage management team. So you'd usually have an ASM and assistant stage management would run the wings, run the props, and just make sure the wing each side of the stage is running smoothly during a performance, and they look after props and personal items for the performers. A technical ASM is a little bit similar to that, but your role would be to look after any technical equipment around the stage that interacts with the performers. So any lights, any speakers, any bits of automation that you can jump in on and fix that. And again, a bit of carpentry you'd kind of be helping the master carpenter build the show and take it down for the get outs as well. So it's a kind of, that kind of set me up as a jack of all trades, kind of doing a little bit of lighting, a little bit of sound, a little bit of carpentry and automation, but you're not really specializing in anything at all. And then it was only once I got to Warhorse where I was kind of specializing on the kind of master carpenter role. And you kind of, and what you find again, because you're touring, you'll be covering. So if the stage manager is off, either the deputy stage manager would take over, and an ASM would cover the dep, and then a swing would cover the ASM. So everyone kind of steps up and covers it. But on a show that was kind of as intricate as Warhorse, you found that you were crossing departments. So like I'd cover the stage manager sometimes, and they'd cover my plot, and it all kind of changed. It was a well-oiled machine, Warhorse, which is why I kind of really liked it. It just worked, and the staffing was right, and it was a great team, and the National were great as well to work with. They're a good bunch. So it just ticked a lot of boxes really for me, and I was just like, this is what a tour should be, and it was good. We're on to your question, Jimmy. We're on to career advice. Career advice for a 16-year-old me. I'd say just don't worry if you don't know exactly what you want to do. I don't think I still don't know what I want to do. I don't think I'll be here forever. I don't think I'll be a technical manager in a venue forever. I kind of want to do a little bit more traveling about, a little bit more touring. But whether I want to attach myself to a show or not, I don't know. So I might do a little bit of pre-production work, a bit of planning work, venue visiting, measuring up, things like that. So yes, I'd say don't worry if you don't know what you want to do. Just try everything and see what fits, basically. But just still have passions. If you're passionate about something, follow it. Do that. Follow what you want to do, and just try it. If it doesn't work, try something else. It's not a problem. For 16-year-old me, as it says in the question here, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work. You've got plenty of time to find something else and just follow that. And I'd say work hard and show people that you're worth investing in. Attitude is really important in our industry, and it's if you have some gaps in your knowledge or your skill set, having the attitude to apply yourself and pick that up is worth far more than having a bad attitude but coming with all the skills. So
I would absolutely, as an artistic director, I would just absolutely second that. I mean, there's people that we've come in, a guy who's I'd say technical stage manager, but he does everything. Like you say, they're a Swiss Army creative. They do everything. And it is, if you've got someone who's like, yeah, what can you do? I'll sort it, whatever. You want to keep hold of them, because they are like rocking or smoke. You just got to keep hold of them because they're game changers and they make everyone else's life a lot easier. So yeah. So, but that's great advice as well. I'm writing this down because I'll tweet it all later. So make it good.
I'm glad I didn't give terrible advice then. Yeah. Next one is people have helped along the way. I think I've already touched on those key people early on. I think the Priestley staff were absolutely spot on. I couldn't have asked for better, really. For I think it'd be quite easy to dismiss a 16-year-old lad from Warrington going, I have no idea what I want to do. I'm not particularly interested in anything. I'll go to gigs and I'll watch music and that's it. And then for them to kind of just sit and watch it and see what you pick up and go, do you enjoy that? And when you say, yeah, this is good, actually just give you the shove that you need. So I'd say, yeah, just staff at college were great. They're kind of the right people to be meeting at the right time. And I think that's it. I've been really lucky with timing. I've just been, a lot of the time, I've been in the right place at the right time, with the right bunch of people. But I'd say again, yeah, my first boss, I got offered the full-time job at the theatre I was working at during uni whilst I was still at uni. And I said, well, I don't want to be in my third year of uni now. I've only got 6 months left. I don't want to not get my degree. So kind of being understanding and letting me continue studies whilst working. And that was busy. And I think that was the first time I'd experienced just nearly being broken work-wise, just having too much on and biting off way more than I could chew, especially at that point in your career. It's my first job. And I've tried to bite off two things. So kind of those guys, again, it's just people giving you the support. But it's talking and telling them that you need that support. So that was great. And then I'd say, just my network that has grown kind of as you go along. I think the point I realized that this was a career and that it was what I did and what I did well was there's a point where you realize I haven't applied for a job in a good number of years, and I haven't been to an interview in a good number of years, and it's just phone calls to say, are you free? We want you to do this. And if you accept, that's it. It's not you accept and then you go to interview, you're just getting jobs. And people were calling you, you weren't, the chasing stopped, and it kind of, you got to be a little bit selective about what you did. You had options, and I was like, oh, right, this is okay. So this is what I do now. So I think that was a really nice point to get to. But it's that you get to that point with your professional network. You don't get to that point if nobody has experienced you working well and your kind of level of work. That is people ringing around and saying, I've got this position to fill. do you know anyone? Would you recommend anyone? And that's a big thing of how this industry works. A little bit less with what I do now. When you're looking at venue work, it's very much, or anything corporate, it's still very much you apply. Even if you're covering for the job, you still have to apply. You have to interview. You have to do well at both, and then you get the job. To the point where we even now interview for casual crew. There's casual crew jobs going at the minute in a lot of theatres, as well as full-time roles. But again, everyone has to apply online, and then there's a selection process, a shortlist, then the interview. So it is still very structured in that way. But on a production level, whilst you will do that if they want to look at new applicants, and kind of entry-level jobs are very much that. When you get to the senior jobs, there is a lot of talking to your peers and talking to your networks to see who they would recommend and who they've used in the past. And again, you just get to know people, and there's a lot of truth in it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's less so, it's a little bit of both, but it does really help if you've got a solid network behind you. I think that's what's helped me most. Sorry, needed coffee. I think this is the last question. It says, what advice would you give to someone wanting to get into the industry? I think we've already covered a lot of this. I'd just say be adaptive, be flexible, and follow the work. And don't think that you have to narrow your career path so early on. If you're starting out, it might be that you absolutely love lighting. You know you want to be a lighting designer. But if you see a technical ASM role, absolutely go for it. Do it. Because what is invaluable, I find, from staff working with me and working for me now, if I've got somebody in a lighting department that understands what the stage management department are doing and understands what the sound department are doing, they're far more valuable than somebody that's just concentrating on what they're doing and pushing through to get their little part of the show done. When you're aware and you fully understand every department in the production process, you're far more able to look at the bigger picture and kind of work together as a team. And that's when tours and productions really work. You do get tours where it feels like people aren't fighting, but they're pushing against each other, and you're not really getting the production where it needs to be at an easy enough pace. It feels like hard work, and it shouldn't be. If everybody's aware of everybody else, it kind of feels much more organic, and it feels like everyone's kind of going towards the same point at the same speed, and it all just kind of works really nicely. So yeah, early on, take whatever work is available. Just if it's industry work, do it. I would say you can worry about specializing later. From there, once you're on a show, you can say, "Oh, I'm really into lighting." Team yourself up with the chief elects and learn on the job. And again, you've made a connection then, because you're already in the theatre. You're already with the production teams that you want to work with. And although you might not be working directly for them initially, you're talking to them day to day. You're on a 12-month contract with them, so you're going to get to know them. They're quite likely to give you a job in the future if you get on and you know your stuff, and that's it. So I'd say, yeah, don't try and specialize too early. Just take the work, follow the work. Absolutely. Especially coming out of the pandemic, I have a feeling that I'm hoping that there's a ton of jobs and everyone gets very excited, and there's so much content out there, and we're all really busy and there's plenty of work for everybody. But in case that isn't the case, I'd just be saying, yeah, take whatever's there.
Great.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Great. There's lots of really great, solid advice in there. Brilliant. Thanks for those, mate. Any questions from the groups?
I'd say the casual technicians at the moment, are you looking for people that have experience, or are you willing to take anyone that's looking good for it?
So it's a little bit of a balance, and that kind of depends on the kind of circumstance as well. If you'd have asked me this 18 months ago, I'd have said absolutely anybody can apply. I'd say venue casual technician is an entry-level role, and it's great for somebody that's doesn't require regular work and is studying and wants to just dip in, do a few shows in the evening, follow spot, things like that, it's a good place to be currently, because we're kind of trying to reopen the venues and we've got full-time staffing shortages, and we're set to open. Liverpool's set to open in August at the minute. So my time frame for hiring, training, and then opening is quite short. So we're hiring at the minute, and I'm looking for mainly people that have got experience. But again, there will be some people with no experience that will be hiring, absolutely, because I think it's good to get that kind of good dynamic between experienced and inexperienced people. I like to hire a good mix of knowledge bases, and I like developing people as well. I get a lot of good feelings about kind of seeing somebody progress and seeing somebody develop in a role. So I quite like hiring that. But again, every venue is different. You get some venues that will be so busy that they, and with a much smaller technical team, that they might not have the time to develop people and might not have the time to train people. So you'll get some venues that are absolutely dead set on experience. But most venues should be up for getting you on board and kind of showing you the ropes, really. So yeah, a mix of everything. I would say for any entry level job, even if you've got zero experience, apply for it, but don't be put off if you don't get it, because like I said, it all depends on time scale and when it is and what they're looking for at a certain time. So it might be that a venue has already got a lot of kind of entry level staff, and they're looking for a few more. Maybe some people have moved on and they're looking to fill the more experienced side of it to balance it out. So if you don't get an entry level job, that's not to say you're not going to get it 6 months later if it pops back up. So just keep applying for them every time they come up, because at each time it is a very fluid thing that people are looking for usually.
Great. Anyone else? I can't see everyone, but I've got one. Just something I ask everyone is assuming that you do, and you look like me, but why do you love what you do?
I think it's that I said earlier about you just kind of, I've never known what I've wanted to do, so I've just kind of followed the work and done it, and then it kind of just dawns on you. It's like, this is what you do, like this is what you're good at. You must be good at it because you've not stopped doing it. And you meet people who really struggle, and you're like, this is I can't do this, and it just kind of comes naturally. So I think it was just kind of, and it's just a great industry to be in. Like there's no other industry like it. I've dipped into kind of TV and film every now and again, not really very much, and that's good as well. But there's something about the theatre industry that is just so welcoming to anybody. And as a kid growing up, you kind of see the theatre as this kind of super posh, inaccessible. It wasn't even on my radar growing up as a thing to go and enjoy, let alone working. And then you just see it as it's actually the most inclusive and welcoming industry in the world, and it's just great. It's great to be a part of, and it's different, changes every day, so you don't get that monotony, that boring repeat. It changes. Even if you're doing the same show for 12 months, after 12 months you want something else usually, so it's all good.
That's great. I'm just literally writing that down, because that's interesting that you don't see it as a form of enjoyment, let alone a career. And actually, when you get into it, it is open and welcoming. Yeah, that's a bit. I definitely can agree with that, mate. Thank you so much. There's loads of stuff there. I made loads of notes, snippets that we can, sound bites that we can share. And for anyone watching, I think it'd be really useful. And again, for I'm an artist director and an actor, but there's loads of stuff that I don't know. So I'm great. I'm really glad that we can have these different people on that are experts in the different various fields, and open up paths for people to jobs on and off stage. But mate, that's been amazing. Thank you so much. What I'm going to do now is
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing this and stop recording, and we can all have a chinny chat and a catch up. But that's brilliant, mate. But huge. I was about to swear then. Huge. Big hand for you. Thanks very much.
I think I did well. I don't think I swore.